What if everything you thought courage was a lie? What if courage doesn't always roar? What if sometimes courage is whispering the truth to yourself after years of silence? Today, we're not talking about bravery in the battlefield. We're talking about the courage it takes to stop hiding in plain sight. We're diving deep into Jenny Wood's soul-shaking memoir, Wild Courage. This isn't just a book. It's a lifeline, a confession, and a mirror. Jenny didn't write this book from the top of a mountain. She wrote it from the valley, from a place where the lights went out, where everything that looked perfect came crashing down. And that's why this book hits so hard. Jenny Wood was a speaker, a mother and a wife, a leader in her community. From the outside, she looked like she had it all together. Inside, she was drowning in expectation and in exhaustion. In a performance she couldn't keep up anymore. And then came the moment, the breakdown. Jenny describes it like this. One night, standing barefoot in her kitchen, she was stirring pasta. Her kids were arguing in the next room. Her husband was upstairs, and something inside her just snapped. She dropped the spoon, slid down the cabinet, and started to cry. Not pretty tears, ugly body-shaking sobs, because she realized she hadn't felt joy in years. Not real joy, not the kind that bubbles up uninvited. She had been surviving, smiling on cue, numbing out with a glass of wine every night. And this was her soul waving a white flag. That moment marked the beginning of what she now calls wild courage. Courage that doesn't look heroic. Courage that looks like falling apart so you can build again. Let me ask you something. Have you ever reached your breaking point? Not the dramatic Hollywood kind. The quiet collapse. The moment you realize the life you're living doesn't fit anymore. If so, you're not alone. Jenny takes us through her recovery, but she doesn't sugarcoat a single step. She starts with the shame. A huge portion of the book is dedicated to what she calls the shame spiral. She writes, "I had no idea how much of my life was built on fear of being found out. Found out as imperfect. Found out as tired. Found out as needing help." There's a story in the book where she walks into a church conference ready to speak. She's done this 100 times. She's got her notes, her smile, and her outfit. But that day, she couldn't do it. She stood at the podium, looked out at the crowd, and her voice disappeared. Panic swelled in her chest. Sweat trickled down her back. She excused herself and locked herself in the bathroom, and sat on the floor in a ball. She writes, "I wasn't having a spiritual attack. I was having a human moment. A real, raw, can't fake it anymore kind of moment." That's the heartbeat of wild courage. It's not about overcoming in the way we usually think. It's about unraveling, and being brave enough to stay unraveled long enough to meet your real self underneath. One of the book's most gripping sections is about addiction. Jenny confesses that she used alcohol to manage her pain. Not in a rock-bottom movie of the week kind of way, but in the just one glass kind of way. The socially acceptable kind. The mommy wine culture kind. She tells the story of how every night after putting her kids to bed, she'd pour herself a glass, then another, not to celebrate, but to disappear, to quiet the voice that said she had to do more, be more, and prove more. And one night, she looked at the half-empty bottle and asked herself, when did this become my comfort? That night, she poured it down the drain and cried harder than she had in years, because she was grieving a false comfort. She writes, "I wasn't just giving up wine. I was giving up the mask that said I was okay." That chapter, it shook me, because how many of us are carrying secret dependencies? Not always substances. Sometimes it's work, perfection, approval, and busyness. And Jenny calls them what they are, distractions from pain we're too afraid to feel. But here's where the book turns. Jenny doesn't just unpack the pain. She points us to something better, something deeper. She calls it coming home to yourself. One of the most beautiful metaphors she uses is the armor. She says every time we choose performance over presence, we put on another piece of armor. We suit up. We smile when we're sad. We say yes when we mean no. We become shiny, hollow versions of ourselves. And eventually, the armor gets so heavy, we forget what it's like to feel light. There's a scene in the book that captures this perfectly. Jenny is getting ready for a dinner party. She's got the food prepped. The house is spotless. The playlist is curated. But inside, she's falling apart. She doesn't want to host. She wants to rest. She wants to cancel. But instead, she smiles. She hosts and she laughs. Everyone leaves saying, "You're amazing." And she closes the door and sobs because she knows she's disappearing. That chapter is titled, "The Night I Hosted a Party and Betrayed Myself." Read that again. Betrayed myself. That line cut me open. Because how often do we do the same? Now let's talk about parenting. Jenny writes about the moment she realized her kids were watching everything. Not just her words, but her exhaustion, her fake smiles, and her wine glass. She describes a morning when her youngest daughter asked, "Mommy, why do you look sad in your eyes even when you're smiling?" That broke her. She knew something had to change. Not for them, but for her. So she started therapy. Real therapy. The messy, snotty kind. And she writes honestly about how hard it was to face her wounds. The childhood trauma. The spiritual abuse. The years of suppressing her voice. One session at a time, she started peeling back the layers. And here's the thing, healing wasn't linear. She had setbacks, relapses, days she couldn't get out of bed. But slowly, she started showing up as her real self. Imperfect, messy, but present. There's a moment later in the book where she's playing music in the kitchen. She's dancing with her daughter, laughing. No makeup, no wine, just there, fully. And her daughter says, "You're here, Mommy." That's the victory. Not fame, not money, presence. Now I want to highlight one more story that I think captures the entire message of the book. Jenny and her daughter go to the ocean. Her daughter runs into the waves without hesitation, laughing, spinning, wild. Jenny stands at the edge, frozen, afraid of the water, afraid of letting go. And then her daughter calls, "Come on, Mama, be wild with me." And for the first time in years, she runs in, salt in her hair, tears in her eyes, joy pounding in her chest. She was free. That's wild courage. Not the absence of fear, but choosing presence anyway. And I want to ask you right now, what's your ocean? What's the thing you're afraid to wade into? What mask are you ready to drop? What truth are you ready to whisper to yourself? Because that's where this book leads you. It doesn't fix you. It frees you. It reminds you that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it looks like therapy, or turning down a dinner invite, or deleting the app, or saying, "I'm not okay." Sometimes it's crying on the bathroom floor and still getting up the next day. So, if you're tired of pretending, if you're ready to be honest, if you're ready to start again slowly, softly, bravely, read Wild Courage. Highlight every page. Write in the margins. Sit with the pain. Then stand in your truth. Because you, my friend, are worth knowing. The real you, not the curated version. Not the polished performance, but the you underneath. So let's wrap with this. Courage isn't a mountaintop. It's a daily decision. To return, to be seen, to stay soft in a hard world. And if you've been waiting for permission, this is it. Lay down your armor, pick up your honesty, let go of the noise, and come home. Hey, if this spoke to you, don't leave without dropping a comment below. Tell me what's one piece of armor you're ready to take off. And if this book sounds like something your heart needs, click that like button. Subscribe for more raw, honest book breakdowns. And share this video with someone who's been fighting too long. Let's be wild together. Let's be brave together. Let's tell the truth and live free. Until next time, stay grounded, stay real, and keep turning the page.